So I want to cover the question of how much does a AdWords consultant cost? I'll elaborate a little bit more, but I want to cover three things. Is one, what is the consultant or agency's job? Two, what are different models? How do they charge? And three, how do you actually go about selecting them after speaking with them and so forth. So the first thing is the goal on the job of an agency or a consultant in AdWords. So the goal is to minimize the wasted cost. So they minimize the waste you pay to Google, to Bing, to Yahoo. If they can minimize that, you're more effective. That's the first part, just because that's going to pay for their salary, right? The second part of it is maximizing the goal, which is usually revenue. Even if it's lead, later on it converts to a sale, it's revenue. So if they can maximize your revenue while minimizing the cost, that naturally leads into maximizing your profit. Now, the challenge is when someone promises to deliver on this kind of thing is the question of accountability. How do you make sure they do what they say they're going to do? I'll get to that in a little bit, but let's just move along. So there's a few ways they can charge for the service. One is simple hourly. I charge $10 an hour, $50 an hour, $100 an hour. A good consultant with probably 6, 7, 8 years can charge anywhere between $100 to $200. A small agency, a boutique shop can charge a little bit less, and a large agency will charge a lot more overhead to cover. I don't really usually like that model of just hourly unless it's something very specific you need help with, training, etc. The second part of a percentage of spend. They say we charge anywhere, if it's very high budget, 4 to 6%, $100,000, $200,000, and then lower end, 10, 15, 20%. If you're spending about $1,000, $2,000. That one I'll get to. I don't love it still, but it's still kind of okay. A third option is tiers. So you're saying anywhere between a budget between $0 and $10,000, it's X. That's how I charge. That way, if the consultant says you're spending $5,000 and you should now spend $6,000 because I think it's going to help your business. If you're in a tier and that going from $5,000 to $6,000 doesn't change how much you're going to pay the consultant, doesn't move to the next tier, then the consultant doesn't really have any invested interest in having you spend more. With percentage, he does. He'll make a few more bucks. That's not always the case, but there's always that kind of thought in the back of your mind. With tiers, you're saying, hey, we're not making any more money this way. I think it's the right thing for the business. Let's just do it. Okay, that's why tiers usually works better. It also helps you set expectations of what you're going to pay, helps you budget better, right? Again, with hourly and percent of spend, that could move a little up or down. With tiers, it's set in stone. It's easier to kind of manage. The last part is partnership. It's pretty rare to establish a partnership, having a consultant work on that kind of contingency, but it does happen when the right opportunity presents itself. So now you have what the job is, how different models of charging. Now, how do you go about choosing one? Now, when speaking to a consultant or an agency, it's very important to make sure that after you go through the spiel and the pitch and they talk about your business, that you speak with the person who is going to be working on your account. See, a lot of times you speak to a salesperson who promises the moon, the stars, and the sun and everything underneath, and then it sounds great, you're sold, you get started, and then it lands on the consultant or the person to account manager's desk, and he says, why did you promise that? It doesn't make any sense. And then there's a lot of what they call massaging in the agency world to kind of set different expectations or realign expectations. So and then there's a lot of turmoil there. So basically, make sure that at some point after all the spiel and it sounds good, you want to move forward, speak to the person that's going to be working on the account. When you speak to that person, ask them exactly how he or she's going to do these things. How are they going to minimize the wasted cost? If you have an AdWords account, have them go into the account with you and show you exactly where you're wasting cost and how they can save money. I mean, if they show you that you spent $5,000 in the last month and $3,000 was wasted, they show you black and white, then it might make sense to work with them if that savings more than pays for their service. That's the first step. The second part is, I'd say, how do they maximize their revenue? What are they going to be doing? What's fresh and new? What is the strategy they're going after? Do they talk about the full funnel, about the landing page, how the website plays with it? Now, not to make a whole new website, but what's the opportunity to improve maybe some small tweaks to make sure that the traffic being sent to it is effective? Again, AdWords and PPC brings traffic to the website. You can bring your horse to water, you can't make it drink. If the website's not effective, it's just not going to work. So have them talk to you about the funnel and the opportunity. Again, not from the salesperson, it's good to hear that, but from the person working on the account. Once you have that in place, look for some kind of accountability. Like I said, the hardest thing to find with consultants and agencies is accountability. How will they be held responsible for the results? Now, it's not always easy to peg it to results like in partnerships. However, there are some things. For example, what I do is a 30-day risk-free service, right? If it just doesn't work, you don't pay for the service. Simple and easy. But look for the company or the consultant that's looking for a long-term engagement. To be there alongside you, make sure it helps. Another example is Google offers free service, but a lot of times you'll get someone working at Google for 6 months to a year, and usually from my experience, nothing against Google, my experience, my client's experience is that the advice isn't that great, just because they're not versed enough. Again, if you're spending $1 million a month, you probably will get a rep with great experience, but if you're spending $1,000, $5,000, $20,000, you kind of have a newbie at Google trying to help you out. Nothing good or bad, just from my experience, it's not that effective. And again, if that Google consultant tells you something doesn't work, then oops, right? You can't fire Google, you can't get a refund. It's not the way it works. So that's why a consultant or someone independent of Google has accountability built in. However, look for how else they can set accountability, some kind of risk-free service, some kind of contingency, something that feels real. So speak to at least 2 to 3 consultants, get a feel how they understand your business, get a feel for how much attention you get from that consultant. Again, speak to the person who's going to be doing the work, not just a salesperson. Again, over-promising, understand exactly how it fits with what you're looking for, how it's different than anyone else you have worked with, if you had worked with anyone else. And then from there you can assess the cost. Like I said, if it's a large agency, it's going to cost a lot more to cover their overhead. Smaller boutiques and small shops, consultancies, they don't have much overhead, so you can get a better deal, a little more personal service. It's not that one is always better than the other. It's just whatever's right for you, but speaking to the right people, choosing the right model that's good for you based on my advice hopefully helps, and looking for some kind of accountability. Again, reputation, check out LinkedIn, look for reviews online, see if someone in your network that knows someone through them, their Facebook page, things like that, BBB.